Actors, we've all got issues, so let's talk about them. I'm Juan Ayala, and welcome to Actors with Issues. Each week, we bring you interviews with actors from across TV, film, and Broadway, taking many deep dives into their careers and getting into the successes, the struggles, and of course, the issues that they face as actors. That's enough about us. Let's dive into the episode. You know, today's guest from the Broadway stage, television, and film, currently starring in the Tony Award-winning remounting of Second Stage's Take Me Out. Please welcome to the stage, Tyler Lansing Weaks. Tyler, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Juan.
So before we dive into the show and the issues, we always start with a game. So just pick a number, 1, 2, or 3.
2.
Alrighty, so 2 is a game called Getting to Know You. So it's just sort of like this or that, rapid fire questions. We'll start with an easy one. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Night person.
Film or TV?
Film.
Drama or comedy?
Drama.
Hero or villain?
Hero.
Stage or screen?
Stage.
What director are you dying to work with?
I'd like to work with Quentin Tarantino. I'd like to work, and then maybe a lesser known would be Jeremy Saulnier, who made Green Room and Blue Ruin. I really like his movies.
Yeah. What is the last show that you binge watched?
Great British Bake Off.
Have you watched the new one?
Oh yeah.
Just
Oh
came
yeah.
out. Oh no, but I mean, just today came out the
Oh,
the Great
the
American.
holiday one.
Yeah, the American one.
Oh no, I didn't know that. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, that just
I'll have
just
to
came
check
out
it
today.
out.
It's on Roku. I think it's free.
They're also doing a musical version of it, I
Are
think.
they really? Oh
Yeah,
God.
they're gonna do like a musical parody version.
The American was surprisingly very, very charming. It's Rue and Paul are also the judges on the American version. So, and it's a celebrity edition. So there's some pretty cool people on there.
Is it still the same hosts, Noah
No,
and
it's
Matt?
Ellie Kemper from Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt and Zach
Oh yeah,
Cherry from Severance. Yeah,
that's
but it's
awesome.
very delightful. It's they're in the tent. I think it's the same crew because it all looks exactly the same. Just
Mm-hmm.
some American faces. But it's funny hearing them say like a lot of the terminology not with an English accent. They're not like bakers starting
Yeah,
today. They're not. It's not that. It's just very American. Just funny to hear.
right.
Speaking of, do you do any impressions or accents? And if so, can we hear one?
I haven't had to do, in school we learned like a ton of accents and stuff like that, but I've never had to do an accent at all in any professional production. I haven't even had to do a Southern accent. So they've all like gone by the wayside. But yeah, in school it was like you learn Irish and different like 5 different British ones and Scottish and Australian and then you get out into the real world and it's like, no, you just talk like how you talk.
Yeah. If you could have dinner with any actor, dead or alive, who would it be?
Uh, yes. Maybe Paul Newman.
Oh, good choice. And lastly, describe your most memorable audition in 3 words. And memorable can be good. Memorable can be good or bad. So that's up to you.
Oh gosh, memorable audition. Um, Guitar, Lost, Death.
Can you share what the audition was for?
I had to play the guitar, and I got lost in the music,
Huh.
and I wanted to die. There's nothing you can bomb lots of different kinds of auditions, but there's nothing worse than bombing an audition where you're playing us and singing a song.
Yeah,
In my opinion, it's just awful because you have to finish. You just have to finish,
just power through.
and all you want to do is run and
Yeah.
scream.
So in interviews, we actors are asked a lot, sort of like, what is that aha moment that they had? What's that? When did they know that they wanted to be an actor? But I like to skip ahead to the thought right after that. So when you had decided that you wanted to be an actor professionally, what were your goals at that time? Were you set on the stage? Were you interested in doing screen acting? But what was your vision once you made that decision?
It's a good question. I don't know if I ever have come to a place where I'm dead set on being an actor. I think it's always something I've held loosely.
Mhm.
And the looser I hold it, the more it benefits me, I feel. Just as far as, because there's so much in acting that's outside of your control.
Yeah.
And so the more it's something you hold on to, sometimes the more anxiety it can induce and stress and things like that. And so it was always a question of me once I started to pursue it more seriously and went to school for it. It was always a question of how can I round out my life? How can I make something that at times seems so impossible feasible? And what if I want to be in the industry, if I want to be close to theater and things like that, what are other possibilities? Can I write? Can I direct? Can I create music? All those sorts of things to just sort of balance out how difficult it can be to, be hyper fixated on being an actor
Yeah.
and being in that world, and just all of the challenges that come along with it.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I try and instill in young actors if they ever ask for
Mm,
advice. It's like you can love acting as much as you want, but please find something else to do in the meantime because you will go insane in between your auditions out of boredom because you
it's
have nothing
tough.
else to do. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. So sort of speaking of when you heard the news and everything was shutting down and we were forced to be in lockdown, how did you pass that time? Did you learn any new skills, start any new hobbies, or did you really take that time to sort of recalibrate?
I had Um, I had very big aspirations. So the pandemic hit, and it was so our show, they gave us 2 weeks off because they weren't sure what was going to happen. And then all of a sudden, the people that lived in LA flew back to LA, and we got word that it was going to be semi permanent. And I started to write, which is something that I always like to do. And I wrote a screenplay and around the time that that was finishing, I actually got really sick. Like I just had an issue with my arms, and so I was planning on writing more and writing and writing and seeing how much I could churn out in the meantime. And I ended up with really bad nerve damage in my arms, and so I spent pretty much the first year and a half of the pandemic with my arms in splints. So I wouldn't bend them. And I was going to like physical therapy twice a week, and I was going to acupuncture and seeing a neurologist and orthopedic doctor. And ultimately, about a year into that, got surgery on my elbow. And so
Wow.
my pandemic was literally me being on the couch asking my wife to like scratch my nose. It was pretty pathetic, but I did manage to get one screenplay out of it. So
Okay. Something. Yeah, yeah.
that's that's something.
Yeah, and a screenplay is more than most of us. I think everyone tried to write a short film, but you went full on
Yeah.
feature.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Way too long.
Yeah. So I did get to see the show back in March during its first run, and was just blown away. I'm very familiar with the show. I did a regional production of it several years ago, and me and the cast and creative team sort of reunited. It was a reunion 2 years in the making because we were supposed to see it in
Mm-hmm.
2020, and then yeah, but Richard Greenberg's message of masculinity and identity is just as relevant now as it was 20 years ago during the first production. So firstly, congrats on such a great show. I was just completely blown away.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's really a lot of fun, and it's great to man, it's great to be able to come back to it. Just the fact that we were finally able to get it on its feet, it feels very, very fortunate.
Mm. And when they announced that they were doing this second run post summer, Were you surprised at that? Because it is rather rare for something to come back so soon.
Yeah, I was surprised. I don't really know Broadway that well. Like I don't know a lot of the history of it, so I didn't know how rare that was. I was mainly surprised because um, it's such a specific show. It feels like it's a show for people that are um, it's not necessarily like Wicked or The Lion King where you're going to have a lot of tourists coming in and
Mhm.
stuff like that. It feels like something that a lot of people that are into theater know and appreciate, but maybe not people outside of theater or coming to New York to see a couple of shows would see. And so I was surprised from that perspective.
So I'm definitely like a firm believer that with every role that we get as actors, there is something to be learned. There's always a new opportunity to learn and to grow something. So with a role like Jason's, who sort of is going through this little identity crisis during the show, what did you learn playing Jason and Take Me Out?
I think that's a really good question. I learned about, I mean, just from a craft perspective, because it's a smaller role, but when he comes on, he just has a couple of moments that he has to nail. There's some comedic moments, and there's some, important moments to land as far as setting up the tone of the play. He comes on early. He lets people know, hey, this is not going to be all doom and gloom. We want you to laugh. We want you to we want you to feel relaxed and take all of this in. And there's going to be some characters. It's not just going to be, we're not just going to be hitting you over the head with heavy stuff. And so that was really fascinating to learn and embracing the character's role in that part of the play of like, hey, you have to go in, you have to bring the energy, and you really have to set the tone for an important part of the play, which is the humor because it covers so many heavy topics and because there's so many intense things that happen. If you don't have the levity of characters like Jason, and if you don't know, hey, we can sort of release some of the tension here and here and here, then it's the play is going to feel that heaviness rather than just kind of fly forward, which is what we want people to do, is to take them along for a ride that feels effortless. And so that was really fascinating. And I didn't realize that until like halfway through our initial run, just because of times where I wasn't embracing that or I wasn't aware of that. And we would get through a production or a run and kind of feel like, I would feel like, why didn't that quite take off as much? And realizing like, wow, I have a part to play in
Mm.
setting the lighter tone of the show. And so that was really interesting. That wasn't something I had experienced before. Um, yeah, does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. So with Jason's role in particular, like you said, sort of remembering when you come in, sort of it is sort of that first couple of comedic moments that really do sort of set up because the as you said, the show does get rather heavy. You're dealing with racism and homophobia and a death. Spoiler alert. We won't say who, but for those who haven't watched the show, it's playing through February 3rd, so go see it. Um, but yeah, sort of definitely providing that levity and sort of welcoming the audience like, hey, this is not a normal show. You're going to see some things that you don't normally see on stage, and you're going to experience things that you normally don't because of the subject matter. Theater usually is, um, at least when it comes to comedy, which is, it's funny because this is more of a, I feel like it's very much in between a drama and a comedy because of those moments that it has. So for you, sort of like navigating those moments going between, what was that like for you? Sort of finding that balance.
I think that's something that was really interesting to explore. And, as a company in the rehearsal room, we had to figure that out. There were moments where there were some gags that were some jokes that were proposed that we ultimately pared back on because we didn't want it to veer too far away. We didn't want to lose people. We didn't want to, set it off into kind of cartoon land. But that's one of the things that I think is really great about great plays. that is always great about specifically the playwright Richard Greenberg's writing is when you take different kinds of people with different values, with different perspectives, with different intelligence levels, and you put them in an intense, dramatic situation. And, Richard for sure has a perspective and he has an idea, but within the play, he's not he's not preaching, he's not trying to like guide people on a leash. He's giving you sort of a playground of like what happens when all these characters are forced into a locker room, all these wildly different kinds of people, and then we turn up the heat, we turn up the pressure. How are they going to respond? What is going to come out of it? And as a result, different people are going to see themselves in different characters. They're going to hopefully have light shed on themselves. And because of that, the comedy and the horror, the comedy and the drama goes hand in hand because that's real life. How many times have you been fighting with a significant other or with a family member, and then all of a sudden you're laughing because you misspeak or somebody says something that's just so wild, and it's that kind of a thing. It's when you walk the fine line, you realize that that's all the more realistic because life isn't just tears over and over and over again. It's laughter mixed in and hilarity and oh my gosh, I can't believe I just said that. That's so stupid. And you get carried along in sort of this really just surprisingly realistic experience of all of these different kinds of people being together in one little locker room.
And with the name of our show being Actors with Issues, what is an sort of like a day-to-day issue that comes to mind that actors deal with that you can sort of shed some light on? I know you talked a bit before about having interests in things outside of acting to, keep us occupied.
Where to start? um, it can be, I mean, look, specifically during the pandemic, it's changed a lot of the nature of acting. A lot of, auditions used to all be in person for the most part, unless you were auditioning for something on a different coast, or in a different country. And so now it's pretty much all done from your apartment or your home. It's a lot of it is self tapes, and that can be isolating. Acting in and of itself can be a little isolating. Uh, but now that there's even less time of going out and seeing your friends at different casting offices and things like that, that can be tough. And that's, where having these different interests and having a good support network and a good community around yourself can help. I mean, I think I've seen a couple of your episodes. I don't know if anybody's spoken about this specifically, but the the way that acting specifically can kind of, I don't want to say attack, but challenge your personal identity. You hear about actors getting lost in characters, but even on a more universal note, there's a lot of rejection. There's a lot of thinking about other people. Oh, how would this person that I'm playing, how would they walk? How would they talk? How would they think? And it can have this effect where if you don't have a strong sense of identity, if you don't know who you are, if you don't have a community and a world outside of the characters you're playing and the acting that you're doing, it's really easy to lose yourself. And not always in a, drastic method actor, kind of way that you hear, but just in sort of a sad, lonely kind of way where you don't necessarily exist outside of the roles that you're playing. And that's something that's really important. That's something why sometimes I think you see like child actors go through troubles because they don't have the time in their lives to develop a core, to develop an identity, to develop themselves as people before getting thrown into, this crazy industry and the crazy occupation that is acting. And then the last thing about that, I think, is the idea that at the end of the day, we are just telling stories. There's nothing magic that's happening. It's important and it's special and it's a very old occupation. But we're storytellers, and the more we think about being actors as telling stories, as play, and make believe and pretend and all of the wonderful things that it is, I think the more that helps kind of guard us against just how kind of mind bending being an actor can the effect that it can have on you.
I think that because with acting there can be so much at stake, we forget to have fun. We forget how fun and exciting acting was when we were doing the school play or our high school show or whatever, or even in college. There wasn't a lot of your grade was at stake, but not like your livelihood. Like some, unfortunately, it is the case with a lot of people. So we tend to put all this pressure on a role, on an audition, and we forget to just have fun and play and enjoy the process. As cheesy as it sounds, enjoy the process, but it's true. You have to.
Especially at, at our level, it's when you get a role, there's always that thought of like this this might be the one. Like, A, this might be the last time I act, but B, like someone might see this. This might be the launch. This might be what gets me to the next level. And so when you start thinking about things just from those kinds of standpoints, it's almost impossible to have fun because there's so much weight and pressure on this role, this moment, this production. And that's what I mean about just holding it all loosely, is you have to just go, hey man, I'm here. I got this. And if this is all I get, I need to find a way to be content with that and to be happy that I at least have this for this moment.
So we don't want to take up too much more of your time. So we're gonna wrap up with a final game, non-rapid fire, so the pressure is off. Fill in the blank. If I weren't working in the arts, I'd be.
A doctor.
What role have you had the most fun playing?
Um, Other than Take Me Out, which has been very, very fun. Um, I really had fun doing a production of Comedy of Errors
Mhm.
at Hartford Stage, directed by Darko Tresnak, and that was really, really, really my speed. It was really a blast.
I'm from Connecticut, so I know Harvard stage very well. What is the best advice you've ever gotten?
Um, well, this was not a good example of it, but my dad always told me people like talking about themselves, and so make sure that you let people talk about themselves. That served me pretty well for the most part.
When I was interviewing, I think an executive from Telemundo for my day job,
Mm-hmm.
they said that when it comes to uh, like job applicants for jobs in advertising and in media and all of, they said, guys, executives love to talk about themselves, so just ask them, turn the question around, and you've won the room. Like, which is true.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
What is the worst advice you've ever gotten?
I don't know if I've ever gotten this from anybody, but um, I've definitely heard a lot. Do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your
Oh
life.
God.
That is not proved true.
Yeah, that's not how the world works. You can love your job.
No,
You're
not at
still
all.
working. There will be moments you don't enjoy
Oh
it.
yeah.
Oh God, another one is what is it? Turn your passion into your paycheck. Horrible advice. Don't do it. Or turning every hobby into like a side hustle. It's like, no, you're gonna hate your hobby because it's gonna become a job.
Yes, exactly. Like your hobbies be hobbies.
Yeah. And lastly, in 10 words or less, what advice would you give to a young actor?
Um, just relating back to what I was saying, develop yourself, make yourself well-rounded, um, and find work to find contentment in everything you do, even if it's not acting.
Awesome. Well, Tyler, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. If anyone wants to give you a follow on Instagram or anywhere on social media, where can they find you?
I'm on Instagram at Tyler Weeks. And other than that, come and see Take Me Out, and I'll say hi to you at the stage door, and you'll see me on stage.
Awesome. And folks, you know the drill. You can follow us on Instagram at Actors with Issues. Give me a follow at Juaniala Official and subscribe to our show on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts for a new episode every Monday and bonus episodes throughout the week. And as Tyler said, be sure to catch Take Me Out through February 2023 at the Schoenfeld Theatre on Broadway. I'm Juaniala. That's Tyler Lansing Weeks. This is Actors with Issues. We'll see you next week.